Shalom friends, welcome to another video tutorial on learning the Hebrew Alef-Bet. In this tutorial we are in our third tutorial number 3, and we're going to be looking at two new letters. And this time we're not going to learn any new vowel marks because focusing on these two new letters is enough at the moment until you get used to them. They're very common. This first one here that we're looking at is commonly referred to as the sheen. You might hear it like shin. So this would be sheen, and then this one would be, I'm going to write it as sin, but you might also hear it more commonly referred to like sin. I learned it this way. Either way is, I think, okay. But we really don't have a letter like this in English, so it is kind of unique. And if you notice, the difference between the two has to do with this dot. And with respect to the bet and the vet, we call the dot a dagesh. And the sheen and the sin typically is referred to as like the sheen dot. And so when it's over to the far right, this letter will have the pronunciation of sh, the equivalent of that to English, like sh. When it's over to the far left, then it takes on the pronunciation of an s, just like sa. Okay. Very common letter, probably more commonly used as a sheen than sin, because they do have another letter in Hebrew we'll learn later on called the samech, and it will act as an S as well. But let me real quick draw your attention back over to the left again. Over here we're going to be keeping up with, in every video I'll put the letters we learned and vowel marks we learned in the previous tutorials. We had already gone over the bet and the vet, and the reason I put this dash here is because these really constitute the same, well, they are the second letter of the Hebrew Alef-Bet. You don't count them like twice, like the bet would be 2 and then the vet would be 3. Either way, they would both constitute the second letter. The reason for that is Hebrew, what's called the gematria, and it's basically numerology. It's just like Roman numerals. They can stand as numbers as well. That's something we don't really need to worry about at this moment. But in other words, if bet or vet were to symbolize a number, they would be counted as the number 2. The vowel marks down here below, the last one we learned was the tseri, which is going to get a kind of hard A. The first two was the chamatz and the patah, and both of them kind of get that A, soft A sound, right? Okay. Now, the sheen and the sin are the same way. They constitute, with respect to the gematria, with numerology, they're really counted as the same number. Although they appear like two different letters, they will appear in the Alef-Bet really just once. This will make a little bit more sense as we go along. But for now, we want to think of them as two letters. But if we were ever speaking with respect to numbers, either one would constitute, I believe it's 21, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so you can see why, the appearance of this, you can see why the Hebrew came up with an easier way of writing their language, or a different script, I should say, because the sheen is a very kind of one of the more interesting letters. It's pretty in a sense if you can write in a a calligraphy type fashion, but as far as the handwriting and a quick efficient way of writing, you can see where it would take a long time to write this. And my handwriting is always very messy, so let's just practice this. And this is one you want to get used to seeing both ways, in the block script and the handwriting script. Remember, this up here is the block script. We're going to practice that real quick, but you want to practice this enough on your own to where you get familiar seeing it, because the handwriting script actually looks a little bit different than the block script. So the sheen, if we wanted to practice this, I don't try to get too fancy with it. I just do something like that and then put the dot at the top right. I'll let you know that that's a sheen. You might see more more artistic stuff going on like this. If you look in the scrolls, the Torah, something like that, it's probably about as good as I'm going to be able to get it. And with the dot over here to the left, that is Sin, so we pronounce that with just a regular S or sa. The first one was the sheen, and that'd be like sha. Okay, we're gonna do it again. Um, and let me just, I'm not gonna, I'll try another if I can. I'm not really good at doing this. There's a couple of variations. I guess you would call them fonts or styles of script that you might see. And you can see how, it takes a long time to do that. So to write that in, to write your a sentence with that in it, and if you're in a hurry, it'd take you forever to write a book. You know what I mean? This is a very common letter in Hebrew as well, so you're going to see it over and over. So that would be the sheen. Let's get a sh sound. I'll go back to kind of the way I was doing it earlier. There's a scene. We put the scene dot at the top left, and one more time we'll do the sheen. And this is a pretty bad one, a little small one, but it's all about placing that dot in the right place. Sometimes when you're reading the Hebrew text without a without the nikud or the vowel marks, sometimes you won't see the sheen dot being used at all. And a lot of times that's to you typically pronounce that like the sheen. In other words, they only use the dot sometimes if they're referring to a scene. And in other cases, they won't use it at all. So you just got to know the language. That's more prominent in, I guess, in biblical Hebrew. But for the sake of learning, we're going to stick with the dot, and you'll see that used very commonly in, I guess, more of the modern Hebrew. But just get used to, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you've got to use a concordance or, something like Babylon, a software to help you figure out how that word is correctly being pronounced, and etc. So the handwriting script this is what we always do in example 3. This is different. It actually looks like more like the lowercase English e, except I write it differently. I write it like this, coming off from the right hand side. Remember, Hebrew's writing from right to left, so sometimes it's easier to write these things differently than when if we were coming from left to right. In English, we would write this a little bit differently. But for the sheen, this is just going to look like a lowercase e with a dot to the top right, and we pronounce that as sha. In English, we would probably write this this lowercase e more coming from the left, like that. I'm not saying there's a right way or a wrong way to do it, but it's very easy to, if you're going in this direction, then you kind of, it's easy to make your letters from that direction instead of writing them and then coming back. Okay, so the scene dot would go over here to the top left, so we know that that's is the sa pronunciation. The sheen again would be dot to the top right, scene dot to the top left, and then the sheen dot to the top right. So just getting used to the dot, and then this can take a while. That was supposed to be an arrow. These getting used to seeing the scene. Oh, maybe I shouldn't even write that. Maybe I ought to do like this, right? Getting used to seeing these differently is it takes a while to get used to, because you go and see this more commonly in your printed material. The block script. You're really not going to see the sheen written in the handwriting script unless you're looking at someone's, modern Israel, someone writing a letter or something over there. Okay, so like I said, it'll take a little bit of time to memorize the handwriting script and the block script. Alright, so in fact, let me just get rid of that. So my handwriting's bad enough. I don't want to put too much on here to be confusing. So we just want to take the sheen and the scene and go ahead and practice with them. Practice them with the vowel marks that we had already learned. So if we wanted to phonetically write the equivalent of this in Hebrew, sa, let's do this. Let me just try I'll start out with the block script, and then I'll switch over to the handwriting script later. I recommend on your own, though, practicing both until you get really familiar with them. So the sa might appear something like this. I'm sorry, I got the dagesh in the wrong place. I tricked myself. We want the dagesh on the top left. That'll give us the equivalent of sa. In fact, let me redo that so I've got some room to write beneath that. Remember, if I was just going to use the regular A, that meant I was using the pata, which is just a straight line. So the equivalent, that would give us the equivalent of this pronunciation as sa. For sha, it's going to be basically the same thing, except we're going to use a sheen instead of the sin. So we'll come over here, the sheen dot to the top left, and then put the pata down below. For she, we'll use the same thing, the sheen dot, and then we want to put the tseri, the two dots, down below to get that hard A, she. So sa, she, sa, sha, and she. Now if we switch over to the handwriting script, we can do, for the say, we're going to use a sin, dagesh top left, and then tseri down below. For the sha, we're going to use the chamatz, but we're going to use the sheen. So put the sheen dot to the top left, top right, and the chamatz down below. And then finally, sa, with the chamatz, we're going to put the sheen dot to the top left, and then the chamatz down below. When you've got a good feel of the new characters and working with them and the vowel marks, start adding in the other letters that we learned in previous lessons. Now we can start writing some things that mean something in Hebrew. One is resh, and I don't know how you might want to go about that. You might want to like break this apart and just underline. Well, if you write this down, you can underline like the consonants, and then see where there would be a vowel mark in between. If we were to write this, we know we got a resh and a sheen, so we're going to put resh there, and then the hard A vowel mark, or the tseri, we'll put two dots down below. I'm going to use the handwriting script, so we'll just use sheen with the sheen dot to the top right, and that would be equivalent to the word resh. And that is, although I spelled it a little bit differently, I used an E. When we learned resh, that is actually the letter resh. That's how you would would spell that. So this is equivalent to the Hebrew letter R. The next one, shev. Here, well, I'll just go ahead and stick to the handwriting script. We're going to use the sheen again, so we got a sheen dot. For the hard A vowel mark, we need that tseri again. Now for the V, we know we can use the vet, or that we learned in lesson 1. So we're just going to end that with our vet. That'd be shev. That is equivalent to the command or the imperative command to tell someone to sit, like sit down in a chair. Shev. Shesh is a number. Here, then I'll switch it up again. Try your block script as well, even though you typically won't write in this. So we got a shesh, so we need a sheen, we need the tseri, the two dots down below, and then another sheen. So that would be now pronounced or spoken as shesh, and that is actually the number 6 in Hebrew, or how you would spell it. Basar is, if we stick to the block script, we got a bet, we need that dagesh in the middle. We'll use the chamatz, so that gives the first syllable ba, and then sar will be 2 more consonants. Here we're going to use the sin dot, or top left, and chamatz, and then end that with resh. And that simply means, it's the word meat, like the meat you would eat. I didn't spell that right, left the T out. Meat. Okay, I'll go back over to the handwriting script, but like I said in other videos, when you're practicing this, don't be afraid to try to create words that have no meaning. You don't know what they If they mean anything at all or they just sound like gibberish, it's okay. Names were a good thing to practice with. Names in English, um, names of cities. You're kind of limited right now with what you can say based on what we've learned so far, but here's a few. Sheshe is a very common nickname for like Sharon. So I'll go over to our handwriting script and I'll do this down below. So we know we got Sheen, Seri, Sheen, Seri, and then we give this She, and then She, She. Now, like I said I think a previous lesson, um, it's 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 uncommon in many certain letters, especially the sheen, to end it with a vowel mark below. But for now, for instructional purposes, it's okay. Just keep that in the back of your mind, and I'll explain that a little bit later. Um, Sasha would be kind of equivalent to that. We could start with a scene dot to the top left. I'll use a pata in this case, and then sha will use a sheen dot to the top right, and then a pata and Sasha. Another, although you wouldn't spell, this is similar to how you would, well, this is partly the way you would spell the name Sarah in Hebrew. So we're going to use sin dot to the top left, pata down below, resh, and then chamatz on the end, and that's Sarah, right? Basically Sarah. It's sound the pronunciation is the same. However, in Hebrew, I'll just go ahead and show you there would be another letter here which we haven't learned yet, which is the he, and you see that the he acts like an H. So that's more common. What you'll see is a kind of like a closed syllable at the end of many Hebrew words. That's not always the case, but in most of them it will be. So let me just go ahead and erase that. But for now, that's just partly. It's just like a silent H, a silent E, or whatever. We'll explain that more later on. Okay, so that's the sheen and the seen, a very important, very common letter that is, or letters that are used in Hebrew. So you definitely want to spend some time getting familiar with that, and in both the handwriting script and the block script. Alright, thanks for watching. We'll pick up in the next tutorial.